everyone, it's Esther. Welcome to the Canada's History Part 2 module. In this module, everything we learn is going to happen after Confederation in 1867. In Canada's earlier history, we mainly learn about the areas of central and eastern Canada. So now it's time to go west. And when Canadian people say go west, we usually mean west of Ontario. At the end of the last module, we learned about how the leaders of Canada had a dream to make Canada a dominion from sea to sea. So in this lesson, we're going to learn how Canada became a country that stretched from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. We're going to be working in your Discover Canada guide on page 19 and 20, and you're going to see a title called Challenge in the West. In Canada in 1869, the government started to take over land in Canada's northwest from the Hudson's Bay Company. But there was a problem. The Canadian government did not talk to the Métis or Aboriginal people who lived there before they started to take over the land. And as can be expected, the Métis and Aboriginal people fought back in an armed uprising. And they were able to take control of Fort Garry, which is now Winnipeg, Manitoba. Louis Riel was the leader of the Métis uprisings. Many see him as a hero and defender of Métis rights. He is known as the father of Manitoba. In your guide, at the bottom of page 19, you'll see a photo of one of the greatest Métis military leaders. His name is Gabriel Dumont. There were two Métis uprisings. The first was in 1869, but the Canadian government sent soldiers to retake Fort Garry for Canada and established a new province called Manitoba the next year in 1870. Louis Riel escaped to the United States. Canada's government and white settlers continued to move west into what is now present-day Saskatchewan. Again, the rights of the Métis and Aboriginal people were threatened, and there was another uprising in 1885. Louis Riel was caught and put on trial and executed for treason, which is working against the government. After the Métis uprisings, Prime Minister Sir John A. Macdonald established a police force in 1873 called the Northwest Mounted Police. This police force was created to help the government relocate Aboriginal people from their territory onto reserves so the European settlers could use the land. Regina became the headquarters, or the main office, for the Northwest Mounted Police. The name has changed to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, or the RCMP. Most people call them the Mounties. They are now Canada's national police force, and they are a famous symbol of Canada. So here are some Mounties. At the bottom of page 19 in your guide, you see a photo of Major General Sir Sam Steele, a famous Mountie. And here's a photo of a Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer that I took a few years ago. Moving on to page 20 in your guide, you're going to see a title, A Railway from Sea to Sea. So you can probably guess from that title that this railway is going to keep going west all the way to British Columbia. British Columbia is the next province to join Canada in 1871, after the Government of Canada in Ottawa promised to build a railway to the west coast. The Canadian Pacific Railway was completed when Donald Smith, or Lord Strathcona, drove the last spike in 1885. And look, I have a spike right here. A spike is a giant nail. This is a picture I took of a CPR train near the provincial border of Alberta and British Columbia. The railroad is still important for moving products and people across Canada, and it is a symbol of unity for Canada. It is important to know that European and Chinese workers came to Canada at this time just to do the hard, dangerous work of building the railway. After the railroad was complete, the Chinese people faced discrimination from the government of Canada. Chinese immigrants were asked to pay an extra fee called the head tax just because they were Chinese. This was a racist policy and it was stopped. The Canadian government apologized for this in 2006. During the 1890s and early 1900s, Canada's economy grew with more industry that used machines and factories. 1 million British people and 1 million American people immigrated to Canada. A new French Prime Minister, Sir Wilfrid Laurier, and we see him here on the $5 bill, encouraged people to move to the west. Because there was now a railway, many immigrants from countries like the Ukraine, Poland, Germany, France, Norway, and Sweden came to the western provinces and started farms before 1914. Now let's look at a timeline for today's lesson. We started the lesson with the Métis uprisings in Manitoba and Saskatchewan in 1869 and 1885. So let's see those on the timeline first. Then British Columbia became part of Canada in 1871. Then we see that the Northwest Mounted Police was established in 1873. In 1885 again, the Canadian Pacific Railway is completed. To finish up this lesson, I have included some links in the resources area of this module for you if you want to hear some famous Canadian music about the railroad and the lives of the people who built it. See you in the next lesson.